This is the
Five Stars
podcast.
Let me talk to you.
Hi.
So, what do you guys want to talk about? Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Thanks, guys. Back to you.
All right, here we go. Second podcast of the new year. And it's a return to form show this Monday. Took a couple weeks off from the Retro Raws. It was actually kind of gratifying in a lot of ways. But it's a brand new year. And you know what that means. It's time to talk about another year of classic Raw. And boy, did they give us a memorable one to start off 1996, let me tell you. I was not mentally prepared going in ahead of time. But this is the Five Starr Wrestling Report. The wrestling podcast nobody knows but everybody needs. We are officially launching into year 3 of the channel. It's been quite the ride thus far. This will be our, eventually coming up on the 3rd year of the Retro Raw Deep Dive. Now I can't even think back to when we started. Didn't we begin the Retro Raw coverage during the height of Lex Luger's babyface push? When they were getting ready to kickstart the whole Lex Express thing? Building him up for that SummerSlam 93 main event with Yokozuna for the title. Good times. Hey, you know what? As much as that crap sucked, at least it was notable. After everything I've talked about in 1995, I long for the days we can go back and hop aboard the Lex Express. But whether you're just tuning in now or you've been an avid follower of the channel since the very beginning, make sure you subscribe, comment, like the show for me. Come back and check out the FSWR podcast on Mondays and Fridays on YouTube and Rumble. I know when it comes to the classic coverage this coming year, it's going to be a wild journey. Plenty of ups and downs to come. Especially as we're doing that crossover between Mid-South and WCW. And I've been talking about it for a while. 89 WCW is the year where the wheels officially came off the bus. Meanwhile, Mid-South is the polar opposite in 1984, which is where we're currently at with the retro discussion. But that was the most successful year from a booking and fiscal standpoint. They did record banner business that year. And then there's Raw in 1996, which is, it wasn't a complete disaster like 95 was. Although, as we'll come to learn, making Shawn Michaels the WWF champion came back to bite Vince in the tush. At the same time, it's the year Vince finally woke up one day and said, hey, we're getting our asses kicked by Nitro in the ratings right now. We need to turn the show around and generate some new eyeballs. And they did eventually turn things around. In 1998. But you know what they say? Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Syracuse. So here's the question I'm sure everybody's asking right now. Well, how exactly do you plan on covering the Raw library now that everything's been taken down from Peacock? Well, I don't want to deliberately sell out the source because, who knows how long that channel will even be up. Let's just say a crafty source may have found a loophole on a particular video platform that I don't think I've streamed stuff on in ages, but it's still a thing. Apparently it still garners a decent amount of traffic. But as far as I can tell, most, if not all of the 1996 library has been uploaded. I'm noticing a good chunk of the 97 content is on that playlist as well. Again, anything can happen in a year's time. When you illegally upload wrestling footage, a lot of that shit gets immediately flagged. Of course, I think it kind of depends on the platform you're uploading everything to. Like, if you try to illegally put stuff on YouTube, instantly taken down. But it's not on YouTube. And I'm just going to roll with it for the time being. As long as I have access to watching these shows somehow, we're going to proceed with the Retro Raw reviews as such. It may wind up turning into an NXT situation where the videos just disappear one day and that's pretty much all she wrote. Can't do anything about it in that case. But as of now, the shows are available. Nothing's edited or cut out from the original taping, from what I'm gathering. It's not intentionally reduced in video quality or sped up to avoid copyright strikes. It's the real deal. And I consider that a great start to the new year. I think somebody thought ahead of time and said, oh, Peacock might not be keeping the classic Raw footage up when their deal with WWE ends, but we can keep the dream alive somehow. I cannot believe I actually said that with a straight face. WWF in 1996. Keeping the dream alive. And how ironic, especially with the boyhood dream story being the entire foundation of WrestleMania 12. I was more so just running with the joke that people actually thought there was any dream worth keeping when it came to Raw in 1996. The product is still in the fucking trenches until like early 97. I don't really know what we're getting excited about here. I'll tell you what Vince and the booking team were excited for on this New Year's edition of Monday Night Raw. What a way to begin the year 1996. You know what was really going to hook in viewers at the start of the new year? The Raw Bowl. You gotta say it like Vince would. The Raw Bowl. It's such good shit. Aren't you just beyond elated? I sure am. Especially coming out of that shitty year that was WWF in 1995. What we desperately needed to turn things around was an entire parody show that directly ripped off the biggest sports event of the entire year. Done poorly, by the way. And of course, beyond everything I'm about to get into as we break down this fucking fiasco, the one thing that really stood out to me here, I've always had this underlying suspicion that Vince McMahon secretly had this inferiority complex when it came to real sports. Like the fact that he hated professional wrestling so much, any and all attempts he could make at trying to make football and baseball and basketball look more appealing than wrestling. I mean, just look at WrestleMania 11 as a prime example. The fact that he had Bam Bam Bigelow doing a fucking job to Lawrence Taylor. Like, that entire storyline was deliberately designed to make people realize just how better the football players were than the goddamn pro wrestlers. And it was insulting to watch as a wrestling fan. Even Bischoff figured out how to do the crossover between football and wrestling the correct way. Vince just went out of his way to bury the whole fucking promotion. I just look at this entire concept of a WWF Bowl. First of all, let me say this. You know, it might not have been the Super Bowl event they were trying to imitate. I don't know what the College Bowl events are called. The Sugar Bowl, the Rose Bowl. I don't know a fucking thing about college sports. I don't care about college sports. Frankly, I don't care about any sport in general. Amateur, college, pro. But if you are going to do something like this, can you try and make it look somewhat professional on television? Can you not make the whole thing just look like a nonsensical joke? And I know people are going to immediately retort back and say, oh, but Tommy, Raw beat Nitro in the ratings this week. And that's true. That is, in fact, true. They beat Nitro by 0.1 in the ratings. A 0.1. Big shutout, I know. Yes, a 2.6 victory over Nitro's 2.5. That'll show the competition. Look out, Bischoff. We've got a formula now, brother. This is the key to victory in 1996. We'll book gimmick-themed Raws all centered around showcasing why real sports are better than our fake sport. May as well have just said, hey people, if you're watching Raw right now, you're an idiot. You may as well just go watch the College Bowl event. Because at least that shit's not a joke like this episode of Raw you're about to watch. Give me a break. And, you know, for anybody that's going to try to argue that it wasn't a complete and utter joke, well, you may have had a point. Right up until they plugged, as special guests for the program, the Nacho Man, the Hukster, Scheme Gene, and Billionaire Ted. The brunt of all NWO jokes during the height of the Monday Night Wars. One of those, if you know type deals. So yeah, that was WWF's plan to kick off 1996. More bad comedy and more bad Vince ideas. Merely saved by Jerry Lawler's marvelous gives no fucks commentary throughout the night. Even he couldn't hide how much this sucked. And people wonder why Vince lost 83 weeks straight in the ratings. Who would have ever guessed? So you want to dive into this thing and figure out what the hell WWF was even trying to do with this New Year's edition of Raw. Didn't take long for me to tap out on this one. You know, I actually didn't even really have an issue with the marching band and the cheerleaders during the opening montage. But when they tried to sell me on the idea that the Smoking Guns were, and I quote, first round draft picks in the Raw Bowl, that is when I threw up the white flag and said, all right, fuck it, I'm over it. First round draft picks. Billy and Bart fucking Gunn. Gotta be kidding me. In what universe? I mean, there were at least a handful of redeeming qualities during the ring intros. I like seeing everybody come out with the different jersey numbers. And, you know, they're all like regular, normal numbers you would expect to see on a team jersey, right? Everybody except Yokozuna, his jersey number was 641, which may or may have not been an omen to something. You go figure that one out. I mean, he's only getting bigger and bigger as the months go by. I also enjoyed seeing Razor beat the shit out of the poor sap that tried to deliver him flowers on behalf of Goldust. Yes, because of all the storylines they would try to promote on this complete throwaway edition of Raw, gotta mention the creepy feud involving the flaming homosexual trying to get in the straight guy's pants. That's what the people need to be reminded of. By the way, I still have no idea how these teams were broken down. You had 4 teams of 2, and I basically just color coordinated everybody based on the jersey color they were wearing. You had the Smoking Guns in the white jerseys. Owen and Yoko were in red. Razor and Savio were in yellow. And the 1-2-3 Kid and Sid Vicious were in black. And for anybody that hasn't already voluntarily gouged their eyes out, let me go ahead and provide you with the rules to the WWF Raw Bowl event. In this match, your team was limited to 1 timeout call. Yes, you could call for a timeout in a professional wrestling bout. Legally, when a team member is pinned, submitted, disqualified, or counted out, the entire team is eliminated. Any team can tag any member of another team. You don't have to tag your own partner, per se. And, yeah, there was something else I wrote down. I completely forgot about it. All I know is I got distracted looking at Earl Hebner's referee outfit. He looked like the world's biggest tool. I do not ever recall seeing Hebner wear a cap at any other point in his life. Now that I've seen him in one, I can't unsee it. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, so apparently, when referring to the roles of guys being able to tag whoever they wanted, that also meant that the team members would have to wrestle each other, which we saw in this match with Billy and Bart having to wrestle each other briefly. Yoko and Owen had to wrestle one another, which, of course, then got me asking a fairly straightforward question. Why not just tag somebody else in? If you didn't want to wrestle your own tag team partner, why not just tag out? baby faces and heels alike. These numbnuts couldn't figure it out. God, the fact that Jim Cornette was a part of this thing. Has he ever done a segment on his podcast talking about the WWF Raw Bowl? Someone has to have asked him a question about it. If not, they need to. I'd love to hear if he has any memories of this garbage fest. So the so-called match is chugging along for a bit here. I don't even really know what the hell I'm supposed to refer to this as. They're in there doing wrestling maneuvers. And, well, eventually we get our first what the fuck moment of the match. We see Razor get a hot tag and start firing up on the Kid. Right as the Kid's about to get hit with the Razor's Edge, the Kid calls for a timeout, which, in theory, I guess means Razor was just supposed to, stop wrestling. Because that's a common thing you see in pro wrestling every day. Or a talent can just make the referee stop the other guy from kicking his ass. Oh, but lest we forget, this is the Raw Bowl. So traditional wrestling rules are not at play here. How silly of me to forget that. So it leads to a huge schmoz where Razor gives the Kid his finish anyway. Hebner's standing there like the biggest moron on the planet, blowing into his whistle and trying to wave off Razor. So in essence, he's like every modern official in wrestling today. An incompetent buffoon, completely incapable of doing anything. And while that's going on, he's also trying to get Ted DiBiase down from the ring apron. And or ejecting him, I'm still not entirely sure. Also, Sid could sneak in from behind, illegally blindside Razor, right in front of Hebner, by the way. And then the Kid gets thrown on top of Razor and pinned. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong nomenclature. In the Raw Bowl, it's considered a score. The Kid scored on Razor. And this is where I wrote the direct quote, "The official low point of Monday Night Raw. Anything I previously covered in 1995, it is all significantly better than this. I don't care what anybody says. If you like this, you are objectively wrong. This shit sucks." Oh, by the way, that entire sequence, the crowd was dead for all of it. They did not react one iota. Because even these peons realized how badly that shit sucked. So we proceed to come back for more chicanery and stupidity. They replayed that pinfall sequence after coming back from break using the Magistrator. Lawler somewhat saved it with his mordant commentary. And what was probably the highlight of the entire segment, if you can even call it that, the sequence where Yoko was about to give Billy Gunn the bonsai drop in the corner while Owen was pinning down his ankles, but then Bart snuck in and pulled Billy out of the way, which somehow tripped Owen as he fell face first, while waiting patiently for Yoko to come off and accidentally give him the bonsai drop. That was at least funny. Only because it was so ridiculous that Owen had to lay there motionless for like 10 whole seconds while Yoko was preparing to come off the middle rope. It was so choreographed. So the match comes down to Kid and Sid versus the Guns. We had more references to the Nacho Man, the Hukster, and Scheme Gene. All of which Lawler could not help but retort back with, "The who? The what?" I'm telling you, man, Lawler was the only reason I didn't immediately head for my kitchen knife after the show ended. I was about to end it all. But Lawler may have saved my life. I think this is the part where I noticed Sid was wrestling while his left lace on his boot was just flopping around the ring mat. Never thought to retie it at any point. Wouldn't want to take our eye off the prize here, would we? We got a trophy to win, damn it. Well, Lawler did have a rather unsettling line when he was talking to Miss Raw USA at ringside. As he weirdly had his arm draped over her shoulder, he tried to get her to weigh in on something. She basically said, "I'll try and contain myself." Because she wasn't paying attention. To which Lawler responded with, and I quote, "Don't worry, I'll contain you." And you just hear her react with that uneasy, slow laugh. She's got that fake forced smile. The, "oh my God, get me the fuck out of this room and away from this guy" expression. And if you've ever been around women enough, you know what I'm talking about. There's always that one guy that just can't help but be a creep. So anyway, here's what I wrote down about the finish. Sid tries to set up Billy for the powerbomb. The 1-2-3 kid gets perched on the top rope for something. I don't know what he was going to try to do. Meanwhile, Hebner's distracted with Bart in the corner. That allows for Razor to run back out, shove the kid off the top into Sid, and then Billy jackknifes Sid and pins him. So indeed, we sat through 25 excruciating minutes of pure and utter shit. Literally to see these smoking guns win the Raw Bowl Cup. Why not? That was my thought. Why the hell not? Awful. Just awful rotten television. It actually made Michael Hayes' halftime report look semi-tolerable. Because at least he bothered to plug the fucking Royal Rumble pay-per-view. He also plugged Mabel and Diesel for later on. And, all of a sudden I was kind of wishing that Raw Bowl tag match would have been extended a bit longer. Of course, that was before actually seeing what they did. I didn't know much about the pre-tape, aside from him trying to refer to Jim Ross as Jumbo Jim. And suffice it to say, JR did not look like he was really down with this whole football-themed concept either. And then for Christ knows what reason, of all the fucking matches to re-air from In Your House in December, they looked up and down that card. They decided, you know what? You know what the fans really want to see again? The Hog Pen match. The only match on the entire card that was specifically geared at appealing to one sick, twisted fuck. Vincent K. McMahon himself. So, of course, we the fans are handcuffed to sit through all that while Vince is probably sitting at the announce booth beating himself off. Watching two grown men roll around in pig slop and mud. And blood. Remember, Hunter got busted open hard way across the back in that match, taking that bump off the metal gate. Yeah, couldn't show highlights of the Davey Boy Bret Hart main event WWF title match. Now, that would have been too serious. We got to keep with the theme of garbage television programming. Let's replay the Hog Pen match. The worst match in modern pay-per-view history up to that point. Well, that's not entirely true. Mabel versus Diesel at SummerSlam 95 was way worse. But hey, speak of the Handsome Devils, why not go with the rematch from the all-time worst pay-per-view main event in history? Diesel versus Mabel. You know what? They probably figured if people are still watching the show after that Raw Bowl tag match, they'll stick around to watch anything. But you know what? I can't even shit on this. Because at least they got the booking right here. If you are going to do Diesel versus Mabel, especially knowing how bad that first match was when we saw it, this is how you ought to book the rematch. Bell rings, Diesel jumpstart, big boot, 1, 2, 3. I'm not kidding you, that was the entire match. And it was perfect. Best thing on the show without question. Now, of course, you may be asking, well, why the hell would they even bother if it was going to be so damn short? My response is, who cares? I did not have to watch Mabel and Diesel go 15 minutes. That is a win in my book. Now, the real reason, if you already couldn't tell based on what they did here, yeah, they pretty much buried Mabel. I think at this point, both Mabel and Mo were on the chopping block. Vince had completely given up on them. You know, I think Mabel competes in the Rumble match at the end of the month, and I mean, that's pretty much it for Mabel until he comes back a few years later as Viscera. And I don't even remember what happened to Mo after this. You know, the bigger picture is them trying to get Diesel over as a monster right before he does the Mania match with Taker. Keep in mind, he's also going to wrestle Bret for the title in a cage at the next In Your House. So they're trying to rebuild his momentum after having dropped the belt back at Survivor Series. I still have no earthly clue what the hell his gimmick is supposed to be. This 50 Shades of Grey tweener persona they've given him, where he's a dick to virtually everybody except the people who are pro-Diesel fans. I mean, I think technically he's still supposed to be a heel, but of course, then you see him walk over after the match, blow off Jerry Lawler's interview, and then steal his girl. She didn't have a problem with it. She saw this big jacked up dude with muscles and long hair and said, "Hypergamy's kicking in now." Didn't have to think twice about walking off with Giga Chad. Sorry, Jerry. So, well, I'll get to the closing segment in a minute here. You know, I did want to briefly point out as they're running down some of the participants for the 1996 Royal Rumble, they also included a video package for Vader's upcoming debut, which, I mean, there's plenty you can say about Vader's WWF run. A lot of what-if scenarios at play there. Missed opportunities left and right. I don't want to do an entire deep dive on Vader's WWF run right now because it'll just make me mad. For anybody that doesn't remember the timeline, I'll quickly share how we got to this point with Vader signing with the WWF. If you were a channel flipper back in the day, you might actually recall there was a period on some of those early Nitros where they were advertising Vader for live events and pay-per-views. Because remember, he was originally supposed to be in the War Games match at Fall Brawl when they were still doing Hogan versus the Dungeon of Doom. I think the match was supposed to be Hogan, Sting, Savage, and Vader. But then Vader got into that altercation with Paul Orndorff in the locker room and was fired. And if you actually go back and rewatch those old Nitro opening graphics, you know, the clip with all the buildings blowing up, you actually see Vader in the opening graphics. It's very subtle, but he's a featured part of the opener. And then you come to learn he never actually wrestles a single match on Nitro because he gets fired right before they air the first episode. And I don't remember what the deal was with him and Orndorff. I never read anything into it. You know, I just remember seeing the articles come out and me being surprised when they started airing promo vignettes of his Raw debut. And of course, Vince fucked it up 6 ways from Sunday. More accurately, it was a combination of him and Shawn. And Shawn not wanting to do business with him because he was an unprofessional dick. You know, like, Vader never stood a chance. But there were other issues at play, too. Sometimes I think Vader was his own worst enemy. I think he ends up getting injured pretty early into his run, too, right? Which might have shifted Vince's opinion on him a little bit. And it was pretty much downhill after the SummerSlam match with Shawn. You know, after that, Vader never recovered with the booking. And I don't remember if there was ever a plan to make him the world champion. I just don't see how that was even plausible when he was working with Shawn around this point. It's just... I mean, the whole thing's a damn shame. And I get he was older by this point in his career, but... He could still be Vader. You know, it's not like the kind of shit he was doing back in Japan from the late 80s, but he could still work. I think it was just timing. You know, if they could have brought Vader in sometime in 95, I think the story would have been a whole lot different. They could have scrapped the entire Diesel title run, which is a complete and utter disaster anyway. They could have had Vader do a semi-lengthy title run, have him work with Brett. Of course, you still had the Mabel problem, but I would venture a guess that Vader was more capable of getting something watchable out of Mabel than Diesel ever was. Yeah, it's just wrong time, wrong place kind of thing. Very unfortunate. You know what else was wrong time, wrong place? This closing skit with Billionaire Ted in the Wrestling War Room. Somewhere in the 7th circle of hell, there's a Billionaire Ted skit going on as we speak. Specifically designed for me. You know, looking back and watching this, I honestly couldn't tell you what was worse. The fact that they actually aired this, or the fact that they tried to troll me by putting Vince Russo on camera as one of the fake executives. That was a fucking rib for the ages. Just get me mentally prepared for the shitstorm we're about to see in the next 3 years when that guy's on the booking team. Now, I'm not going to spend 5 minutes trying to break down what happened here. You know, the whole gag is the fake Hogan and the fake Savage trying to plead their case as to why they should be signed by the WWF. So the execs are asking, well, what moves can you guys perform? And they show clips of Sid and Diesel and Ahmed giving guys power bombs and tiger drivers. But Hukster and the Nacho Man are like, nah, that doesn't work for us, brother. We don't do that kind of risky stuff. So when they ask, well, what do you guys do? You just see the Hukster and Nacho Man do their signature poses. Yeah, that was really the punchline. Think about that. The idea that the World Wrestling Federation was where the real wrestling happens. Not that fake shit you're seeing on Nitro, with all the old-timers doing their outdated 1980s poses and hamming it up for the camera. Mind you, those same guys that used to be employees of the World Wrestling Federation can't make that shit up if you tried. Because when I think of real wrestling, my first inclination is to think WWF. The same promotion that sponsored Macho Man Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, The Ultimate Warrior, The Honky Tonk Man. Right. Yeah, totally not gimmicks. Just extensions of their own personality. Fucking unreal. Mind you, the same company that also spent the last decade making a mockery of wrestling and deliberately trying to make it garbage sports entertainment. Yeah, I'll buy that propaganda. And you know, at the end of the day, all I can say about it, despite how horrible this show was, they still beat Nitro. I can't even wrap my head around that. Unless people were literally just tuning in for the irony of it, that is the only explanation I can come up with. The WWF Raw Bowl beat WCW Nitro. That right there, that should have been the sign that WCW was screwed. We didn't even need the years 1998 through 2001. You can trace it all back to here, brother. January 1st, 1996. The real death of WCW. When they couldn't even beat the fucking Raw College Bowl parody show. Hang up the boots, man. You done. And that was the first show of the year. Got another 50-something weeks of this horse shit to cover. Boy, I can't wait to talk about the curtain call. Oh, there's so much to come. So much yet to come. And we're going to try to get through it all. But thanks everybody for tuning into this one. If you have any memories of the WWF Raw Bowl, I'd love to hear you share your comments. But we'll pick things back up on the Friday show with more of the territory coverage and kind of getting back to regular formula here with the Friday and Monday shows going forward. The new year is upon us, and well, we still don't really know where things are going to go with the modern product. It's Rumble/Mania season, so if there's ever a time to be paying attention to what's going on with Raw and SmackDown right now, I probably should be going out of my way to watch those clips. But we still have a few weeks before the Rumble, so I'll kind of start sharing more of my thoughts there as we edge closer to the event. I'm still not getting that Netflix subscription. It's just not something I can financially prioritize right now. Quite frankly, I don't really see a need for it, especially if the classic archive stuff isn't going to eventually go to Netflix. And it's just going to kind of linger about in purgatory like the retro NXT shows are. It sucks, man, but it is what it is. These streaming deals come and go, and it's kind of just a matter of what these various networks want to plug and promote. CW didn't want to capture all that classic content, so Now we're just kind of left with whatever the hell they're doing right now with NXT, which is not really good from what I hear. And with Raw, it's just whatever happens from 2025 onward, and we're just going to retcon the previous 50-something years. I don't know. No, not 50 years, 30 years. I can't do math. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough, so I'll catch you guys later. Take care. Peace out.